In this project, students unpack and integrate major events into their classroom. Or in other words, what you're going to do is you're going to select an event that took place within the last 5 years. And imagine that event took place the night before you were scheduled to teach. Or if you are an SLP, the night before you were scheduled to work with clients, school-age clients. So how would you prepare to unpack an event like that and integrate it into your teaching day? Would you? Would you not? If you wouldn't, you might skip this project. But if you were interested in exploring how you might integrate it or mention it, this project suggests some ways forward. So first, what you do is you'd explore this day after slide deck. And it's for teachers, but speech paths can imagine this from a client setting as well. So what does teaching on days after mean? And I sort of explained to you what it would mean. So this one's talking about the Kavanaugh hearings, and this one is about after Trump was elected and after the Parkland shooting. So it sort of frames how maybe to think about it and some ways of conceptualizing a framework for thinking about it. So you'll notice here it says resisting silence and refusing neutrality. Now you might feel like, hey, my job is to not take sides. If you do that, you know, it sort of goes against this notion that teaching is an ideological act or a political act. And as teachers, we want to make sure that the most vulnerable students are protected and supported and understood. Doesn't mean you have to silence everyone else, but think about who your most vulnerable students are and how you might create a way to interact about the topic and the events in a way that doesn't make it worse for them and that also integrates your content area. Okay, so you start with that slide deck, and then there are 4 steps to think about when, as this article says, when bad things happen, how can you think about them? And so it's fairly short in terms of how to orient yourself. And then finally, what you will do is you will select an event, like I said, in the past 5 years, and then you will use this slide deck. So you'll make a copy of it. You just go File, make a copy, entire presentation. And then you'll sort of fill this out with images and some text. So what's the event? And why is this event important? Oh, give me a sec. Okay, so where were we before I had that phone call? I think we'd just gone over the 4 steps, and then we're going to use this preparatory slide deck and unpack. So your job is to pick an event that happened in the last 5 years, and then you're going to imagine what would it be like teaching or working with a client afterwards. So the first slide, you want to put in like what happened, some videos, maybe some news articles. And this would be a process you could use before such an event came about in the future. So say something big happens and you want to talk about it in class, this would be a process for getting ready to do that. So what happened? And again, videos, articles, images, some text. In what ways was this event important? How is power circulating in this event? What different perspectives might your students have? And then how might this event serve as a barrier for your students' learning? How does it intersect with your content? Now you might be thinking, I teach math, it doesn't intersect. That's not enough thinking. I think you can come up with a way you can see how it might intersect with your content, and not in some superficial way where you're like, or some way that, you know, the next slide, slide 8, how do I make sure I don't make things worse? I mean, let's say you were a math teacher and you were like, Well, let's think about the probability of getting shot. If you were in the parkland, like if you were a student at Parkland, you know, that may or may not be the right way to go about that. But this slide, more than that, is about asking, have you done your homework before you talk about this with students? Do you know enough about it? And that's where this slide deck is set up to maybe get you ready, more ready to talk about it in the classroom so you don't make things worse. And then here you put some discussion ideas and some content integration ideas and some more concepts. How do these, so this slide, especially down here in the notes section, tries to support you in thinking about how you might integrate it with your content area, relating it to standards. Have others done things? As a teacher, your job is not to come up with the unique, perfect thing no one has ever done. It's about adapting, synthesizing, and then thinking about how it works for your students in your school, and also for you. And then after this slide 11, you add 4 to 9 slides that are student facing or client facing. So what would you, when you're talking about it with them, what sort of slides? Give me a look and feel, give us a sense of what you are going to be doing with your students with this content. What might be the slides that you put up when you're talking with them, or things that they might be thinking about, or questions you might pose. Okay, oops, not that one. Okay, so this is set up as 65 points. That may or may not change, and this due date may or may not change, but that is what this project is about. And then at the end, so in each of those slides you create, add a rationale for each slide in the notes section on that slide. And you can also, on a final slide, you can reflect on the process itself. How ready do you feel to integrate and unpack with your classroom or with your clients a major event that happened the day before, the weekend before you see your students again for the first time?